Think about your smartphone. You didn't build the operating system. You didn't write the code for the camera or the GPS. You just bought the hardware and learned how to swipe the screen. Now, imagine you wake up one day and your phone has unlocked a secret, high-level developer mode. It's doing things it was never programmed to do, warping space, generating black flames, and it's doing it perfectly. Did the phone learn how to do that? No. The code was already there, hidden in a locked partition of the memory, waiting for a specific signal to turn on. This is the secret of the Mangekyō Sharingan. It isn't a superpower that a ninja trains for, it's a pre-installed update from an alien source. 1,000 years ago, an extraterrestrial race called the Otsutsuki patched human DNA. They left behind a library of combat data that we call the Sharingan. Today, we're moving past the myths. We're going to look at the Uchiha not as warriors, but as biological hardware running a foreign, ancient script. We've all seen the baseline: subpar coordination, low bandwidth chakra control, a candidate who, by all physical metrics, should not be a high-tier combatant. And then the anomaly. In a fraction of a second, the hardware peaks: total spatial mastery, zero latency phasing, no trial, no error. The common consensus in the shinobi world is instinct. We're told that upon awakening, the Mangekyō, the user, simply knows. But in a forensic framework, instinct is just a placeholder, a comfort word for a mechanism we haven't bothered to deconstruct. Think about the physics. How does a brain that has never perceived a dimensional rift suddenly calculate the entry and exit vectors of a vacuum on command? Today, we're throwing out the instinct model. The data tells a different story. The Mangekyō isn't a new tool, it's a decrypted data packet. It is a phylogenetic reflex, a pre-recorded combat script inherited from a non-human source, and it's been waiting in the Uchiha bloodline for 1,000 years. To understand the present, we have to look at the anomalous past. In our world, the ancient astronaut theory suggests that human leaps in intelligence weren't accidents, they were patches installed by an extraterrestrial hand. In the shinobi world, this isn't a theory, it's a matter of forensic record. Kaguya Otsutsuki didn't just mate with a human ruler, she functioned as a biological vector. She performed what we call a xeno-epigenetic injection. She didn't just pass down her traits, she forced a high-performance alien architecture into the human genome. The God Tree wasn't a plant, it was a planetary-scale processor, and Kaguya? She was the carrier of its source code. Think of the Sharingan as a basic user interface. It allows a human to track and mimic. But the Mangekyō? That is a locked administrative partition. Kaguya introduced a foreign operating system into the Uchiha gene pool. She left behind a dormant payload of abilities that the human brain was never meant to invent, only to host. We've been taught that the God Tree is a parasite, but looking at the data, it's more accurate to call it a harvesting tool. It doesn't just eat life, it archives it. Every combat technique, every sensory experience, every unique biological trait of a world is condensed into a single high-density payload, a genetic aggregate. When an Otsutsuki consumes this fruit, they aren't gaining power in the human sense. They are performing a system update. They are integrating the collective combat data of an entire biosphere into their own code. This is the missing link in the Uchiha connection. The lineage doesn't just carry blood, it carries a compressed archive of this harvested Otsutsuki data. Whether it's the progenitor eating the fruit or a descendant awakening the eye, the biological process is the same. They aren't learning a new jutsu from scratch. They are re-syncing. They are accessing a memory that was already written into their blood 1,000 years before they were even born. So, how do you access a 1,000-year-old archive? You don't use a password, you use a biochemical key. Extreme emotional trauma isn't just a plot device. It is a physiological trigger that breaks the encryption on the Xenogenetic Archive. For a pure-blooded Uchiha, the awakening is an instant driver update. The trauma releases the lock, and the ancestral combat data floods the motor cortex. Obito didn't need to practice Kamui. His brain was already preloaded with the muscle memory of 100 Otsutsuki generations. He was simply hitting run on a pre-installed script. But then, we have the forensic outlier, Kakashi Hatake. Kakashi had the hardware, the physical eye, but he lacked the epigenetic manual. Because he wasn't part of the bloodline, his brain couldn't sync. He had to brute force the spatial coordinates using his own limited human processing power. This explains the years of system lag. For Obito, Kamui was a reflex. For Kakashi, it was a high-level mathematical execution that nearly crashed his entire biological operating system every time he used it. We spent years calling this evolution. We've watched the Uchiha climb a ladder of power, assuming they were reaching for a new peak of human potential. But the data suggests a darker reality. The Uchiha aren't evolving into something new. They are reverting to the source. Every stage of the Sharingan, every new ability unlocked, is simply another line of the Otsutsuki legacy script being decrypted and executed. Each power-up is a loss of biological autonomy. The more of the archive you unlock, the less human you become. We aren't watching a ninja master a power. We are watching a prehistoric alien virus reasserting its dominance over a human host. The Mangekyō doesn't belong to the Uchiha. It never did. It belongs to the stars. If the Mangekyō is a precompiled software suite, we have to understand the hierarchy of access. Not every Uchiha is granted the same permissions. At the foundation, we have Level 1, the kernel utility. This is the Susanoo protocol. It is a universal, hard-coded defensive script found in the safe mode of every Otsutsuki-compatible brain. It's the most basic driver in the archive. If you have the eye, you have the shield. No special decryption is required. Level 2 and 3 are the standard and advanced scripts. These are the combat macros, Amaterasu for physical destruction, Tsukuyomi for neural overrides. Access here is determined by the trauma frequency. Sasuke and Itachi both manifested Amaterasu because their genetic signatures were close enough to double-click the exact same offensive file in the directory. But at the very top sits the administrator protocol. This is the theoretical 100% sync. An administrator doesn't wait for a trauma key to unlock a specific door. They have the master key. They can call any function in the Otsutsuki library, Kamui, Koto Matsukami, Kagutsuchi at will. They aren't just using the eye, they are editing the source code of their own reality. If the Mangekyō is a pre-installed software suite, then we have to ask, is it possible to unlock the entire library? To move beyond 2 unique eyes and access the full Otsutsuki combat directory? This is the master key protocol. We've seen the hierarchy. Level 1 kernels like Susanoo, and level 4 specialist scripts like Kamui. But these aren't random gifts. They are restricted access files. Itachi and Sasuke both manifesting Amaterasu isn't a coincidence, it's proof of a shared directory. Their near-identical genetic signatures simply double-clicked the same offensive macro in the archive. But Sarada Uchiha represents a new variable. She exists in a stable era with a refined genetic line. If she achieves a 100% sync rate, she won't just have her powers. She would have read-write access to the entire suite. She wouldn't be limited by her trauma. She would be the first human to bypass the user restrictions and operate as a system administrator for the Otsutsuki legacy. In this model, Sarada isn't just the next Uchiha warrior. She is the interface, the one who finally masters the software that has been glitching in her bloodline for 1,000 years. To accept the xenogenetic model, we have to clear the cache of outdated theories. Let's audit the community's standard models and see where the logic fails. First, The instinctual manifestation theory, the idea that the eye is a wish-granting machine that invents powers based on a teenager's bad day. Biology doesn't work that way. Evolution doesn't invent complex spatial warping mechanics on the fly. Trauma doesn't create the power, it selects it. The brain's neural state simply acts as a filter, pulling a pre-existing combat script from the Otsutsuki Archive. Next, the stone tablet theory. Proponents claim it's a user manual, but Obito used Kamui perfectly without ever reading a word. The tablet isn't the source, it's a diagnostic tool. It's a README file left behind for those whose biological download is glitchy or confusing. It's a reference for the hardware, not the software itself. Then there's the Kodomatsukami anomaly. Why is Shisui's power so different? Because Shisui didn't tap into a soldier script. He tapped into the God Tree's will harvesting protocol. His eye wasn't a weapon, it was a system admin tool, designed to manipulate the very chakra network of the planet's inhabitants. And finally, the Susanoo. Why is it universal? Because Susanoo is the Otsutsuki kernel. It is the safe mode of the eye, the most basic hard-coded defensive script in the source code. It's not a gift, it's a default system utility. Forget the will of Indra or spiritual possession. That's mysticism. What we're looking at is genetic latency. It's not a ghost, it's encoded motor cortex data asserting its dominance across time. The data doesn't lie, but it does demand a choice. We are looking at a lineage that has been programmed for 1,000 years to act as a planetary scale defense system. The evidence suggests we aren't seeing ninja miracles. We are seeing legacy hardware fulfilling its original purpose. So, I'm opening the theory for peer review. Is the Susanoo truly a shield of the soul, as the legends claim? Or is it just a legacy system utility, a hard-coded safe mode left behind in the Indra code? Let's debate the data in the comments. If your theory can survive the forensic audit, it belongs in the next dossier. Initialize the like and subscribe. Stay synchronized,